by myths, assumptions, and misunderstandings. The inner world of men. The title of this speech is 97% of women don't know these 5 psychological secrets about men. And while that number might sound dramatic, the truth is that men's psychology is rarely discussed with the same openness as women's. This lack of conversation creates distance, confusion, and sometimes unnecessary conflict in relationships. Before diving into the 5 secrets, let me lay out the foundation with 5 keynote principles inspired by the teachings of a renowned voice in the study of courage, vulnerability, and human connection. These principles will act as our guiding lights as we uncover the layers of men's emotional reality. Vulnerability is not weakness, but the birthplace of intimacy. This truth is at once simple and profound. Yet it runs counter to what most men have been conditioned to believe their entire lives. From early boyhood, men are often taught that crying is shameful, expressing fear is unacceptable, and showing emotional softness is a sign of weakness. These messages are reinforced by family structures, cultural narratives, and peer expectations. By the time a man becomes an adult, many of his natural impulses toward openness and emotional expression have been suppressed. He may laugh, he may succeed, he may even fight and protect, but to sit down and say, "I feel lonely" or "I am scared," often feels almost impossible. And yet, it is precisely this willingness to reveal vulnerability that lays the foundation for the deepest kind of love and trust. When we talk about vulnerability as the birthplace of intimacy, we are pointing to the reality that love cannot grow in the presence of walls. A man may care deeply for a woman, he may admire her, protect her, and even provide for her, but until he feels safe enough to drop the armor, the relationship will remain on the surface. He might seem like he is fully engaged, but his true self is still hidden behind defenses. What women often don't realize is that most men desperately want to be seen, not just for what they do, but for who they are beneath the layers of performance and pressure. When a woman creates a space where his vulnerability is not judged or mocked but embraced, that is the moment the relationship moves from ordinary connection to extraordinary intimacy. For men, vulnerability often feels like a risk with extremely high stakes. Society has told them that their worth is measured in strength, independence, and problem solving. Imagine the inner conflict when a man feels sadness, insecurity, or fear, but believes that admitting it will make him less of a man in the eyes of his partner. This creates a prison of silence, where he holds back his truths in order to protect an image of masculinity that may not even serve him. Yet, the paradox is clear: the more he hides, the more distance he feels. The more he conceals his heart, the lonelier he becomes, even in a committed relationship. Women who understand this paradox are able to reach men at a level that very few ever do. Let us consider what happens when vulnerability is received with compassion. A man finally admits that he feels inadequate at work, or that he is worried about not being able to provide as much as he wishes. If his partner responds with scorn or dismissal, "Don't be weak," or "Why can't you just fix it?" he shuts down further, learning that openness is unsafe. But if she responds with understanding, "Thank you for sharing that with me. I know it's not easy to say. I'm here with you in this," he learns that his relationship is a safe harbor. That single moment can transform his entire view of intimacy. He will begin to associate her presence not with judgment, but with acceptance, not with pressure, but with peace. The beauty of vulnerability is that it is reciprocal. When a man feels safe to reveal his inner world, he will often become far more attuned to the vulnerability of his partner. Rather than dismissing her feelings as too much, he will recognize the courage it takes for her to share them. Vulnerability begets vulnerability. It opens a cycle of honesty where both partners feel free to show their flaws, their doubts, and their dreams without fear of rejection. The relationship becomes less about maintaining an image and more about supporting each other's authentic selves. It is important to acknowledge that vulnerability does not mean oversharing every emotion or disregarding boundaries. Instead, it is about choosing to be authentic when it matters most. A man does not need to cry at every disappointment or narrate every insecurity. What matters is his willingness to let his partner see him in the moments that matter. When he is uncertain, when he is hurting, when he is in need of comfort. Those are the moments that build intimacy brick by brick. Without them, relationships risk becoming transactional. Based only on our shame is a silent destroyer of relationships. To understand men on a deeper level, one must recognize that behind their confidence, their achievements, and even their occasional bravado lies an invisible force that often dictates their actions, their silence, and their struggles. That force is shame. Shame for men is not always loud. It is not always visible. It works quietly in the background, shaping their choices, shutting down their voice, and convincing them that they are not enough. This silent battle is one of the least understood aspects of male psychology, and yet it is also one of the most powerful. From early childhood, boys are told to man up, don't cry, and be strong. These words may seem harmless, but they carry a heavy message that emotions like fear, sadness, or even tenderness are unacceptable. By the time these boys grow into men, they have absorbed the belief that any sign of weakness will lead to rejection or ridicule. This conditioning plants the seeds of shame. The feeling is not just, I did something wrong, but I am wrong. When this belief takes root, men begin to hide parts of themselves they fear will be judged. They bury insecurities, doubts, and even dreams, not because they want to, but because shame convinces them that exposure will cost them love, respect, and belonging. In relationships, shame becomes especially destructive. Many women see their partners withdraw, lash out, or refuse to talk, and they interpret these actions as indifference. But often, the truth is that the man is drowning in shame, feeling unworthy of his partner's love or fearful that she will see through his facade. For example, a man who loses his job may withdraw not because he does not care about his partner, but because shame tells him he has failed as a provider. A man who struggles emotionally may shut down, not because he wants distance, but because shame whispers that admitting weakness will make him less of a man in her eyes. What makes shame particularly difficult to navigate is that men rarely have the language for it. While women may be more likely to express, I feel hurt, or I feel unseen, men often do not know how to put their shame into words. Instead, they act it out through anger, avoidance, or silence. This is why arguments in relationships can escalate so quickly. A man hears criticism, sometimes even gentle feedback, and shame amplifies it into a deafening roar inside his mind. Instead of processing the message as, you forgot to do this task, he hears, you are incompetent, you are not good enough. The reaction might then be defensive or explosive, but underneath it all is a deep wound of shame that has not been healed. The secret many women do not realize is that shame is not about logic. It is about identity. You cannot argue a man out of shame by telling him he is being irrational. What he needs is reassurance that his worth is not defined by his mistakes, his shortcomings, or his struggles. He needs to know that he is loved not only for what he achieves, but for who he is. This does not mean excusing destructive behavior, but it does mean learning to separate the man from his shame. When a woman sees her partner shutting down and responds not with judgment, but with empathy, she begins to loosen shame's grip on his heart. One of the most powerful antidotes to shame is connection. Shame thrives in secrecy and isolation, but when men are able to share their deepest fears and still be met with acceptance, shame begins to lose its power. This is why safe relationships are so transformative. A man who has carried shame silently for years may experience profound healing simply by having a partner who says, I see you. I know you're struggling. You're not alone. That moment of connection tells him that his worth is not contingent on being flawless. However, it is important to note that women cannot fix shame for men. What they can do is create an environment where shame cannot grow unchecked. This means being mindful of words during conflict, avoiding the kind of criticism that attacks character rather than behavior, and fostering an atmosphere where mistakes are not equated with failure of identity. Men, in turn, must learn the courage to confront their shame, to acknowledge it rather than bury it, and to practice the vulnerability of sharing it with someone they trust. Consider how different relationships would look if men felt safe enough to bring their shame into the light. Instead of turning distance into a wall, they could open up and say, "I'm scared I'm not enough for you," or "I feel like I'm failing." These confessions, while terrifying for many men, are also the very bridges that lead to intimacy. When women hear these words, they often feel closer to their partner, not further away, because they are being invited into the hidden place of his heart. Shame also affects the way men pursue goals and dreams. Many men avoid risks not because they lack ambition, but because shame convinces them that failure will confirm their worst fear, that they are inadequate. Others overwork themselves, striving endlessly for success, not out of joy or fulfillment, but to silence the voice of shame that tells them they must constantly prove their worth. In both cases, shame is the driver, and it leaves men exhausted, distant, and often misunderstood by the people who love them most. The secret, then, is not to eliminate shame entirely, because shame is part of the human condition, but to recognize its presence and its power. When women understand that shame is the silent battle men fight every day, they stop misinterpreting behaviors as coldness or pride. Instead, they see the tender truth men too fear rejection, inadequacy, and failure. This awareness changes the way conversations you. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to show up despite it. This principle is fundamental to understanding men, because what many women perceive as confidence or decisiveness is often rooted in a silent battle with fear. Men are not devoid of vulnerability, insecurity, or uncertainty. Rather, they navigate these emotions in ways that society has taught them are acceptable, often masking fear with action, humor, or stoicism. Courage, therefore, is not about eliminating fear, but embracing it and deciding to act in spite of it. Recognizing this allows women to see that a man's strength is not measured by how fearless he appears, but by how willing he is to confront his fears, both internally and in his relationship. From childhood, men are conditioned to suppress visible signs of fear. Crying in response to hurt, expressing anxiety about the future, or admitting uncertainty are frequently met with ridicule or judgment. A boy learns quickly that to survive in the social world, he must appear brave, competent, and in control. Over time, this learned behavior becomes a mask that covers genuine emotion. When a man smiles confidently or handles challenges with apparent ease, it can be easy to assume he is free from fear, but the reality is that he experiences doubt, worry, and vulnerability just like anyone else. What sets him apart is not the absence of these emotions, but the courage to move forward in spite of them. In adult relationships, courage manifests in subtle yet profound ways. A man may fear rejection, fear failure, or fear being misunderstood, yet he chooses to invest emotionally in a relationship. This decision alone is an act of bravery. For many men, love is not a casual feeling, but a deliberate choice that requires risking exposure of their deepest selves. Expressing love, committing fully, or admitting mistakes can feel terrifying because these actions open him to judgment and the possibility of loss. Women who understand this can interpret a man's consistent effort and presence as evidence of his courage, rather than taking it for granted or questioning his dedication. Courage also plays a role in communication. Men often struggle to articulate feelings that have been suppressed for years. Sharing insecurities, admitting mistakes, or expressing emotional needs can feel like standing on a cliff's edge, knowing that one misstep might result in ridicule or disappointment. When a man does share, it represents not only trust in his partner, but also the courage to be seen in his authentic, imperfect state. Women who respond with empathy, patience, and understanding reinforce that courage is honored and that vulnerability is safe, which strengthens the emotional bond between partners. Another dimension of courage is seen in decision making and responsibility. Men frequently face internal pressure to perform, provide, and protect. Choosing to take responsibility for difficult situations, whether financial, familial, or emotional, requires confronting fear of inadequacy. Men may worry about making the wrong choice, disappointing loved ones, or failing to meet societal expectations. Yet stepping forward despite these fears and facing the consequences with integrity is an act of courage that is often invisible but essential to sustaining healthy relationships. Women who recognize this internal struggle can approach their partner with appreciation for the effort it takes simply to show up fully in life and love. Courage in men is often intertwined with perseverance. Fear might whisper that it is safer to retreat, to avoid confrontation, or to disengage from emotional risk. But true courage involves persistence, continuing to show up, continue to communicate, and continue to engage, even when the heart quakes and doubts arise. This is why a man who stays committed, who engages in hard conversations, and who chooses love daily demonstrates not only strength, but a profound psychological resilience. Understanding this allows women to see that patience, understanding, and gentle support are powerful tools in nurturing a courageous partner. Moreover, courage is relational. Men are often more willing to take emotional risks when they feel safe and understood. A partner's validation, respect, and willingness to listen without judgment create the conditions for courage to flourish. When women approach men with openness rather than criticism, they encourage him to confront fears rather than hide from them. Conversely, harsh judgment or dismissiveness can reinforce fear, causing a man to retreat emotionally and reinforcing the idea that vulnerability and courage are unsafe. Recognizing this dynamic is crucial for cultivating intimacy and trust. Courage is not static. It is demonstrated in everyday moments rather than grand gestures. It appears when a man admits he is wrong, seeks guidance, or expresses needs he has long kept hidden. It is present when he navigates conflict with empathy rather than defensiveness, and when he continues to invest in love despite past disappointments. By viewing courage in this light, women can appreciate the depth of effort behind actions that might otherwise seem routine or mundane. Courage is an ongoing choice, a daily commitment to act despite fear, and acknowledging this reframes the way women understand and relate to men. Fear and courage also influence how men handle challenges in personal growth and self-reflection. Facing one's flaws, insecurities, or past mistakes requires tremendous bravery. Many men resist introspection because it forces them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. Yet, the men who choose to engage in this inner work, even when difficult or painful, demonstrate courage that is invisible but transformative. They take risks emotionally and psychologically to become better partners, fathers, and individuals. Recognizing and honoring this effort allows women to appreciate not only the man before them, but also the journey he undertakes internally, which is often hidden from view. Ultimately, the psychological secret here is that courage is the engine behind meaningful male engagement in relationships. It explains why men sometimes act hesitantly, withdraw, or struggle to express themselves. They are navigating fear, and every act of presence, honesty, and love requires them to confront that fear consciously. By understanding that courage is not absence of fear, but choice in the face of it, women can respond with compassion, patience, and affirmation, creating an environment where men feel empowered to act courageously in both love and life. This insight transforms the way women perceive men, enabling deeper empathy, stronger connection, and a recognition that what may seem effortless on the outside often conceals remarkable psychological bravery. Courage, therefore, is not only a secret of men, it is a bridge to deeper intimacy, trust, and understanding when recognized and honored in relationships. Empathy is the bridge that closes the emotional gap between men and women, yet it is often misunderstood or underestimated in relationships. Many women focus on communication, gestures, or shared experiences as the primary means of connection, while the subtler, more powerful tool, empathy, remains underutilized. Empathy is not simply listening or nodding in agreement. It is the deep, active understanding of another person's internal world. For men who have been conditioned to suppress vulnerability, empathy serves as a lifeline, a way to feel seen and understood without judgment. When a woman approaches her partner with genuine empathy, she creates a psychological and emotional space where trust, safety, and intimacy can flourish. Most men grow up in environments where emotional expression is restricted. They are told to be strong, to handle their problems internally, and to avoid showing feelings that might be interpreted as weakness. As a result, men often develop emotional armor, layers of detachment, humor, and stoicism that protect them from judgment, but also keep them isolated. Empathy works as a key to unlock that armor. It communicates that it is safe to reveal inner thoughts and feelings, that his experiences are valid, and that his partner values understanding over criticism. This validation of his inner life is not trivial. It has profound psychological effects that ripple across every aspect of the relationship. Empathy also functions as a form of emotional navigation. Men, like women, have complex emotional landscapes, but because they are often discouraged from exploring or expressing these landscapes openly, they may struggle to articulate needs, fears, and desires. A woman who listens with empathy does more than provide emotional support. She helps him map his own feelings, giving him a framework for understanding and expressing what he experiences internally. This guidance is often subtle but transformative, as it teaches men that emotions are not obstacles to be feared, but signals to be acknowledged and acted upon. When women fail to exercise empathy, even small conflicts can escalate. A man who senses judgment, dismissal, or misunderstanding may withdraw, shut down, or react defensively. Women may interpret these behaviors as emotional distance or lack of care, when in fact, they are the byproducts of a man's fear of being misunderstood or rejected. Empathy interrupts this cycle by validating his internal experience, reducing the instinct to hide, and creating the conditions for open dialogue. In practice, empathy is about tuning in, reflecting, understanding, and responding in a way that communicates, "I see you, I hear you, and your feelings matter." Empathy is not only about emotional support, it is also a catalyst for vulnerability. When a man feels truly understood, he is far more likely to take emotional risks, to share doubts, fears, or even dreams he has long concealed. This willingness to open up is the foundation of deep intimacy. Women who understand this can recognize that moments of apparent distance or silence may be an invitation to respond with empathy rather than pressure or criticism. By creating a safe space for expression, empathy allows men to lower defenses without feeling exposed or judged. Furthermore, empathy encourages reciprocity. Men who experience empathetic understanding are more likely to develop empathy themselves. They learn that their partner values emotional truth, which often motivates them to be more attuned to her feelings, needs, and vulnerabilities. This creates a positive feedback loop, strengthening the emotional connection and deepening mutual respect. Relationships grounded in empathy are more resilient, as both partners feel supported in expressing authenticity without fear of rejection. Empathy also plays a crucial role in conflict resolution. In many cases, disagreements escalate because one or both partners fail to understand the other's perspective. Men may feel criticized or belittled when their actions or choices are challenged, not because the criticism is inherently harsh, but because shame, fear, and insecurity amplify the perceived threat. When women respond empathetically, they validate his perspective without necessarily condoning every behavior. Statements like, "I understand why you feel that way," or "I see the pressure you are under," communicate understanding while maintaining boundaries. This approach diffuses defensiveness and fosters constructive problem-solving rather than emotional shutdown. Additionally, empathy is essential for emotional attunement over time. Men's emotional states may fluctuate subtly, and without empathetic observation, these changes can go unnoticed, leading to gradual distance. Women who cultivate empathy notice shifts in tone, behavior, or energy, and respond in ways that acknowledge his inner experience. This ongoing emotional responsiveness prevents misunderstandings from accumulating, strengthens trust, and reinforces the sense that the relationship is a safe space for authentic expression. The practice of empathy also counters societal conditioning that often pressures men into hyper-competence and emotional restraint. By consistently responding with understanding rather than judgment, women signal that love and respect are not contingent upon flawless performance. This allows men to experience a sense of liberation, where they can engage in the relationship fully, embracing both strengths and imperfections. Empathy becomes a stabilizing force, reducing anxiety and encouraging participation in ways that would otherwise feel risky. Ultimately, empathy is not a soft skill or a supplementary aspect of connection. It is the bridge that allows men to step across emotional barriers and meet women in genuine, unguarded ways. It transforms how men perceive their partner, how they perceive themselves, and how the relationship evolves. When women understand that empathy is both a tool and a secret of men's emotional engagement, they unlock a level of intimacy that transcends surface interactions. They learn that understanding a man deeply requires more than conversation. It requires seeing the world through his eyes, feeling with his heart, and responding with acceptance and validation. By mastering empathy, women gain the ability to foster safety, encourage vulnerability, and cultivate trust. They learn that men, like all humans, thrive when their internal experiences are honored. They discover that empathy is not merely about comforting. It is about connecting at a level where words, gestures, and actions align with the deepest emotional truths. This understanding transforms relationships from transactional partnerships into profound, resilient bonds. Empathy, therefore, is not just a secret about men. It is a pathway to enduring intimacy, mutual respect, and authentic connection that remains largely hidden to those who overlook its power. True belonging comes when a man can be fully seen and still loved. This is a concept that is often overlooked, but is fundamental to understanding the psychological needs of men in relationships. Many women assume that men are less emotionally complex, or that their desire for connection is simpler than it actually is. The truth is that men, like everyone else, crave a sense of acceptance and belonging, but because of societal expectations and cultural conditioning, they often do not have the language or permission to ask for it openly. Men are frequently taught that to be worthy of love, they must be competent, strong, successful, and unflinching. When a man feels that love is conditional upon performance or appearances, he experiences isolation, anxiety, and the constant fear of not being enough. The most profound gift a woman can give is the ability to make him feel truly seen, to embrace him as he is, and to love him despite imperfections, mistakes, or vulnerabilities. Many men carry the burden of invisible masks. These masks are constructed over years, built from childhood lessons, societal pressures, and past relational disappointments. A man may wear the mask of confidence when he feels insecure, the mask of control when he feels fear, or the mask of stoicism when he feels fragile. These masks are not superficial. They are protective mechanisms developed to navigate a world that often discourages emotional openness. For women who want to understand men deeply, recognizing these masks and the fear that underlies them is essential. The challenge is not to remove the mask forcibly, but to create a relational environment where the man feels safe enough to gradually reveal his authentic self. This is the essence of belonging, being accepted as one is, without preconditions or judgment. True belonging requires consistent emotional safety. A man may test the waters, slowly revealing aspects of himself that he has long hidden, but he is acutely aware of the risks. If met with ridicule, criticism, or conditional acceptance, he retreats, reinforcing the belief that to be loved, he must perform, pretend, or withhold. On the other hand, when a woman responds with patience, understanding, and affirmation, she communicates that love is not contingent on perfection or strength. In these moments, belonging is experienced viscerally. He can breathe, relax, and participate in the relationship without fear of rejection. This creates a feedback loop where vulnerability is rewarded, trust deepens, and intimacy flourishes. Belonging also means that a man's emotions, thoughts, and experiences are validated rather than dismissed. Women often unintentionally undermine belonging by offering solutions instead of acknowledgement, or by prioritizing rationality over emotional resonance. While advice and problem solving have their place, men often need first to feel heard and understood. Statements such as, "I hear you," "I see what you're feeling," or "It makes sense that you feel that way," reinforce the sense of belonging, demonstrating that his inner world matters and is respected. Validation does not mean agreement with every thought or action. It simply communicates recognition and acceptance. The desire for belonging extends beyond individual emotions to the broader sense of identity. Men want to feel that their values, aspirations, and authentic selves are respected. A man may fear that his quirks, passions, or dreams are incompatible with love or acceptance. Women who cultivate belonging demonstrate that these qualities are not only tolerated but celebrated, creating a space where he can fully inhabit his identity without fear of losing affection. This understanding transforms relationships from conditional partnerships into alliances where both partners feel free to grow, explore, and be themselves. Belonging is also relational in its effect. It influences how men engage with intimacy, communication, and shared life. When a man feels truly seen and loved, he is more likely to invest emotionally, take risks in vulnerability, and participate in the relational labor necessary to sustain a partnership. Conversely, when belonging is absent, men may withdraw, become defensive, or engage superficially, not because they do not care, but because their emotional needs are not being met. Recognizing this dynamic is crucial for women seeking to foster deep connection, as it reframes behaviors that might otherwise be interpreted as disinterest or aloofness. Importantly, true belonging does not require perfection from either partner. It is not about meeting every expectation or fulfilling every desire. It is about creating a relational culture in which both partners feel safe, appreciated, and authentically connected. A man who experiences this kind of unconditional acceptance becomes more capable of extending the same to his partner. Belonging is reciprocal. The more a man feels valued as he is, the more he is able to value, support, and empathize with his partner. This dynamic strengthens the emotional infrastructure of the relationship and creates resilience against external pressures and internal conflicts. Another critical aspect of belonging is the integration of past wounds. Many men carry unresolved pain from childhood, past relationships, or personal failures. True belonging allows space for these experiences to exist without shame or fear of judgment. When a woman offers acceptance despite knowledge of these wounds, She provides an environment where healing can occur and where the man can begin to integrate his past into his present self. This process fosters authenticity and deep emotional connection, laying the foundation for a relationship characterized not by superficial harmony, but by profound understanding and trust. Belonging is also about consistency and reliability. One isolated act of acceptance may provide temporary reassurance, but lasting belonging is cultivated over time through consistent behaviors, words, and emotional availability. A man learns through repeated experiences that he can reveal himself without being punished or abandoned. Each moment of acceptance reinforces the belief that love is not contingent upon perfection, encouraging further openness and deeper connection. Over time, this creates a secure emotional environment where both partners can thrive, free from the fear and defensiveness that undermine intimacy. Ultimately, true belonging is the culmination of all the psychological secrets previously discussed: vulnerability, the management of shame, courage, and empathy converge to create a space where a man can fully be himself. It is not a gift that can be given superficially or on a schedule. It is cultivated through patience, understanding, and unwavering support. When a woman embraces this principle, she unlocks a level of intimacy and trust that remains elusive to most. A man who feels truly seen and loved will respond with authenticity, loyalty, and a depth of connection that cannot be manufactured through strategy or manipulation. It arises naturally from the security and acceptance he experiences. This secret is perhaps the most transformative of all because it addresses the heart of human relational needs. Men, like women, thrive when they belong. They flourish emotionally, communicate more openly, and engage fully in love when they know that they are accepted for who they truly are. When women recognize this, they gain not only insight into male psychology, but also a blueprint for creating relationships that are rich, resilient, and deeply satisfying. True belonging is not merely an abstract concept. It is the cornerstone of lasting intimacy, the antidote to distance, and the ultimate expression of love. When a man experiences this, he does not simply participate in a relationship. He invests himself fully, with trust, courage, and authenticity, laying the foundation for a love that endures.